Welcome to the third lecture on the sectional crisis, the road to the Civil War. And where we left off was with the territory of Nebraska being divided into Nebraska in the north and Kansas in the south, and that it's open to popular sovereignty of who can move into, or whether or not they can have slavery in these territories. And so now we're going to get a lot of people moving into Kansas from the south, especially from Missouri, and from the north. And, Stephen Douglas might not have cared about slavery, but other people do. And there was really a race to get to Kansas and to swing the vote in your favor or not. Now, to Southerners, that Northerners are trying to capture Kansas, they feel is like a betrayal of the nature of the Kansas-Nebraska Act. They sort of say, hey, it's implied that we would have Kansas as a slave state. Well, Northerners reject that, say, no, it's popular sovereignty. It's up to the people to decide, and we're going to move on in. And so one group that was encouraging people to settle in from the north is the New England Emigrant Aid Society, which was set up to help people move into Kansas and offered the money, support, supplies, wagons, whatever you need. You want to go out to Kansas, we'll help you get there. And it's in New England that abolitionist is strongest and has always been. And yeah, so it's set up, and people like the Beecher family, Harriet Beecher Stowe, the writer of Uncle Tom's Cabin, she's from the Beecher family. They carried with them Beecher's Bibles, which is not a Bible, it's just that gun right there to defend themselves. And so they're moving in, abolitionists, free soilers, and these guys, the Border Ruffians, coming in from Missouri. And these are, the often, the hillbillies kind of groups, or the low ends on slave society, who are also moving in to try to sway it towards the south. And you're going to get two different governments set up. Now, they're along the Kansas River. This is Missouri here. This is Kansas over here. Topeka will set up will be sort of headquarters, one of the headquarters along with Lawrence here for not slavery, and Lecompton would be set up as a headquarters for the pro-slavery sort of group. And you're going to get violence between the two groups, in particular directed towards the abolitionists and the free soilers. Southerners, especially these Border Ruffians, they're a violent lot, and they sack Lawrence. They go into one of these headquarters for the abolitionists and burn the town down, destroy their printing presses, and instill a lot of fear into them. Now, out of revenge for this, we're going to get John Brown entering the scene. This is the first time we'll see John Brown, but not the last. He responds to this incident in a very violent way. He takes a number of his followers, including some of his own children. He had a very large family, and they went to a place called Pottawatomie, and they massacred 5 men who they presumed were pro-slavery people. And when we say hacked, swords, chopped off their heads, and as to instill fear, it's revenge for what had happened at Lawrence. So we're getting blood spilled, and this leads to Bleeding Kansas, as it's known, with months and months of back and forth sort of guerrilla warfare. Over 200 people killed. Brown leaves Kansas, and we'll pick up his story at a later time. And it's at the same time. This is all happening in May of 1856, I want to say, 55. But it's all happening like Lawrence was like May 20th, and this May 24th or 25th, and in between them is when you had the incident on the Senate floor. And what happened is this man here, this is Charles Sumner, who's an abolitionist from the north. A few days earlier, he'd given a very incendiary, insulting speech where he accused Southerners of raping the virgin soil of Kansas, and had called their southern civilization, just barbaric. And he put much of the insults onto one particular person, this guy's father-in-law. His name's escaping me now, but one of the more respected southern senators. And so to reclaim the honor of his father-in-law and of the South, who they feel they've been deeply insulted, and these ideas of chivalry and honor are very strong among the southern elite, he decides he's going to get his honor back, and he went over to Sumner's desk and just started beating the crap out of him with his cane until the cane broke. Sumner would survive barely. He would be out of commission for about 3 years. It took him to recover. It almost killed him and caused serious damage to him. As for Brooks, he didn't really face much of a punishment for this at all and was easily reelected, and his supporters sent him hundreds upon hundreds of canes as he'd broken his old cane. So Southerners, saying, hey, yeah, we support you. Go ahead. So if you think some of the attacks amongst senators and politicians today is bad, well, this was one of the dark days of the United States Senate. Another depiction of the attack. Now, what's going to happen in Kansas? We got these two groups. We're going to get a constitution coming out of them. Okay, the people have moved into Kansas. The population's there. So once you've got a certain population, you can apply. You write up a constitution and you apply for statehood. Now, 1857. That's come about. The territorial legislature was under the control of pro-slavery forces. Now, why? Well, because it's much easier for Southerners to get people in there of the day of the vote to come in, vote early, vote often, and then leave. People are coming from the outside, and so the voting was very fraudulent and corrupt. Now, so the very first legislature, though, was a pro-slavery one, and they put out for the vote a constitution. Now, you can vote one of two ways. You can vote for the constitution with slavery or without slavery, but there's a catch. If you vote for it without slavery, the slaves that are already in Kansas, which was not a lot, but the ones that are already there, those slave owners would allow to maintain the slaves. So free soilers, the abolitionists are just really upset by this, because no matter which way they vote, there will be slaves in Kansas. And so they boycott the vote. They just don't vote. And Kansas then adopts the Lecompton Constitution, and this is the constitution that they're going to apply for statehood. So now it's come back to Congress. Now it's their issue again. And are they going to accept this Lecompton Constitution of Kansas coming in with slavery? There's an election, 1856. First times Republicans run, they lose Fremont, and it's probably a good thing that they lost at this time, because Fremont probably would not have been the right leader at the right time for coming in. So Buchanan's elected in, and we can see that we're getting sectional divides, north and south at this time. And the Democrats split because President Buchanan supports the Lecompton Constitution. Now, Stephen Douglas, as we said, he didn't really care one way or the other about if slavery's in Kansas or not, but he does care that it's got to be done right, that the people are supposed to decide. And as far as he's concerned, the people of Kansas, who in the majority are against slavery being added, they've been hoodwinked. It's a fraud. It's not right. And so Stephen Douglas does not want to accept this constitution and bringing Kansas in as a slave state, because it wasn't done right. It wasn't done fairly. And this is going to divide the Democratic Party. And it's in the debates over whether or not to accept it, the House of Representatives erupted into a brawl. One pro-slavery person accused an anti-slavery person of being a black Republican puppy, to which he replied, "No Negro driver shall crack his whip over me." And then there's fighting, and then next thing you know, you've got about 30 congressmen in a big fight that didn't last too long. As the story goes, one of the congressmen, his wig fell off, and and everybody laughed at him, and then they just sort of settled down and got over it. But what we are seeing is that this issue is, which had been compromised in 1850, is now back on the table. It's in the Congress. They've got to make the decision, and they're fighting over it, literally fighting over it. So we're going to stop there, and we're not at the end of the story yet, but we're going to get into the final stages and the final push of the Civil War in the next lecture. So thank you very much for listening.